In 1944, an American P-51 Mustang crashed intact on German territory. What happened next would change the Luftwaffe's perception of its true enemy in the skies. The year 1944 marked a decisive turning point in the skies over Europe, as formations of B-17 and B-24 bombers from the US 8th Air Force penetrated ever deeper into Reich territory. A new escort fighter made its appearance, the North American P-51 Mustang. This aircraft, equipped with the British Rolls-Royce Merlin engine manufactured under license by Packard in the United States, represented a technological revolution that the Luftwaffe had not yet fully understood. On November 20, 1944, near the German city of Zerbst in Saxony-Anhalt, a P-51D Mustang, serial number 441733 from the 362nd Fighter Squadron, was forced to make an emergency landing after suffering combat damage against Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighters. The pilot, Lieutenant William T. Roach, managed to land the aircraft in an open field with minimal damage before being captured by German troops. Unlike most Allied aircraft shot down, which were usually completely destroyed or severely damaged, this Mustang remained practically intact. Its aluminum fuselage gleamed under the winter sun. Its hydraulic systems still functioned, and most importantly, its Packard V1650 712-cylinder engine, producing 1,490 horsepower, was operational. The news of the captured Mustang quickly reached the Luftwaffe headquarters in Berlin. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, Supreme Commander of the German Air Force, personally ordered the plane to be transported with maximum priority to the Rechlin test facilities located in Mecklenburg, northern Germany. Rechlin was the nerve center where the Luftwaffe evaluated both its own prototypes and captured enemy aircraft. The Mustang was carefully dismantled, transported in camouflage trucks overnight to avoid Allied air attacks, and reassembled by specialized technicians in Rechlin's underground hangars. The German engineers were immediately impressed by the P-51D's construction. Its aerodynamic design featured clean lines with no unnecessary protrusions. The ventral radiator, placed beneath the fuselage to generate the Meredith effect, used residual heat to produce additional thrust, an innovative concept the German designers recognized as brilliant. The bubble canopy provided 360-degree visibility, something Bf-109 pilots could only dream of. Its internal and external fuel tanks gave it an operational range of over 2,600 km with auxiliary tanks, allowing it to escort bombers as far as Berlin and beyond, something no German fighter could match. The Mustang's armament consisted of 6 Browning M2 12.7mm machine guns, 3 in each wing, with a total of 1,180 rounds. Although the Germans preferred 20 or 30mm cannons to destroy heavy bombers, they acknowledged that this configuration was ideal for air-to-air combat against enemy fighters. The documented top speed of the P-51D reached 703 km/h at an altitude of 7,600 meters, clearly surpassing both the Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6 and the Focke-Wulf FW-190A, still in active service. Colonel Hans-Werner Lerche, chief test pilot at Rechlin and a veteran with more than 2,000 flight hours, was assigned to perform the initial evaluations. Lerche, who had flown virtually every type of German aircraft, and many captured ones, from British Spitfires to Soviet Yak-3s, meticulously studied the translated Mustang manuals and conducted detailed inspections of the engine, flight controls, and weapon systems. Within the highly compartmentalized structure of the Luftwaffe, there existed a special unit known as Circus Rosarius, named after its commander, Hauptmann Theodor Rosarius. This unit, officially designated as Air Test Command 16, operated from the Rechlin facilities with a singular mission: to capture, evaluate and fly enemy aircraft in order to identify their strengths and weaknesses. Between 1940 and 1945, Circus Rosarius evaluated more than 50 different types of Allied aircraft, from Spitfires and Hurricanes to B-17 Flying Fortress bombers and even Mosquito reconnaissance planes. The pilots assigned to Circus Rosarius were not ordinary soldiers. They were Luftwaffe aces with years of combat experience, men who had survived hundreds of missions over the Eastern Front, the Mediterranean, and the Western Front. In addition to Colonel Lersch, the Mustang evaluations involved Major Werner Mulders, a decorated veteran with the Iron Cross, and Captain Fritz Lüscher, an air combat tactics specialist. These men were intimately familiar with the capabilities of German fighters because they had pushed them to the limit in life-or-death situations. The captured P-51D received a new identification. German black crosses were painted on its wings and fuselage, and it was assigned the test code T9+HK. German mechanics performed exhaustive inspections, checked the Packard Merlin engine, tested the hydraulic systems for landing gear and flaps, calibrated flight instruments, and filled the tanks with 100-octane German aviation fuel, slightly inferior to the American 130-octane fuel, but sufficient for testing. On December 3, 1944, under a typical overcast German winter sky, Colonel Lersch strapped into the Mustang's four-point harness. The feeling was immediately different. Unlike the narrow and claustrophobic cockpit of the Bf-109, the P-51 offered spaciousness and exceptional visibility. The controls responded with precision. The control stick felt firm, yet not stiff. Rudder pedals required less effort than German fighters, and the throttle moved smoothly along its range. Lercher started the Packard Merlin engine, which roared with a deep and powerful sound, distinct from the high-pitched whine of German Daimler-Benz engines. During taxiing toward the runway, Lercher mentally noted the excellent visibility from the bubble canopy. In a Bf-109, the long nose and framed cockpit blocked the forward view during taxiing, forcing pilots to zigzag to see ahead. In the Mustang, visibility was clear in all directions. With tower clearance, Lersch pushed the throttle forward. The Mustang accelerated rapidly down the grass runway at Rechlin, reaching takeoff speed in less than 300 meters. The transition from ground to air was smooth and predictable. Once airborne, Lersch began basic maneuvers: climbs, descents, coordinated turns, level flight at various speeds. The Mustang responded with a harmony that surprised the veteran German pilot. Stability was exceptional even at high speed, something the F-190 struggled with due to aerodynamic vibrations. The climb rate exceeded 1,000 meters per minute, allowing it to reach operational altitudes quickly. At 7,000 meters, where thin air reduces the performance of many engines, the Packard Merlin, with its two-stage supercharger, continued to deliver robust power. Lercher pushed the Mustang to speeds close to 700 km/h in level flight. The controls remained firm and responsive, without the excessive stiffening that characterized German fighters at high speed. He performed controlled spins, hammerhead maneuvers, inverted flight and simulated combat against an imaginary opponent. The aircraft recovered cleanly from any unusual attitude without dangerous tendencies. Extended range meant it could stay airborne for over 4 hours with auxiliary tanks. Unimaginable for a Bf-109, which would consume its fuel in 90 minutes. After landing following a 2-hour test flight, Lercher climbed out of the cockpit with a serious expression. The technicians and officers who had been anxiously waiting asked for his impressions. Lercher was blunt. "This aircraft is superior to anything we currently operate. If the Americans have hundreds of these over Germany, we are in serious trouble." His words fell like judgments on those present, confirming what many already suspected, but no one wanted to admit aloud. The evaluations of the captured Mustang entered their most critical phase: simulated air combat against the best German fighters available. The goal was to scientifically determine how the P-51D compared against the Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6 Gustav and the Focke-Wulf FW-190A8 in realistic combat scenarios. For these tests, Rechlin had perfectly maintained examples of both German types, flown by the most experienced members of Circus Rosarius. The first series of simulated combats pitted the Mustang against a Bf-109 G6, the Luftwaffe's workhorse since 1943. The Messerschmitt, equipped with a Daimler-Benz DB605 engine producing 1,475 horsepower, had been the standard German fighter for years and had proven its worth on all fronts. Major Werner Melders piloted the 109, while Colonel Lercher flew the Mustang. Both aircraft took off from Rechlin and headed to a designated testing area over German fields away from Allied bomber routes. The engagements began at 6,000 meters altitude. Melders, with decades of Bf-109 experience, attempted to employ classic German tactics: rapid vertical climbs, taking advantage of the DB605's power boost, tight low-speed turns where the 109 traditionally excelled, and high-speed dives to escape. However, the Mustang responded to every maneuver with ease. Lerch could follow the 109 in prolonged climbs thanks to the sustained power of the Merlin. In sustained horizontal turns, the Mustang retained energy, while the 109 quickly bled off speed. The most notable advantage appeared in high-speed combat. When both aircraft exceeded 600 km/h, the Bf-109's controls became heavy and unresponsive, requiring considerable physical strength to maneuver. The Mustang, by contrast, maintained light and precise controls even at maximum speed. This meant that in high-speed pursuits, common when German fighters tried to intercept retreating bombers, the P-51D had a decisive tactical advantage. After 30 minutes of aggressive maneuvers, Melders was forced to admit that he could not gain a favorable firing position against the Mustang if both pilots were equally skilled. The second phase pitted the Mustang against the Focke-Wulf FW-190A8, considered by many German pilots to be superior to the Bf-109 in several aspects. The FW-190, powered by a 14-cylinder BMW 801D2 radial engine producing 1,700 horsepower, was robust, stable as a firing platform, and had excellent turn rates at medium speeds. Captain Fritz Lossegeid piloted the FW-190, confident that his favorite aircraft would demonstrate superiority. The simulated engagements revealed that the FW-190 had advantages in turn rate between 350 and 450 km/h, and its armament, 4 MG-151-20 cannons plus 2 MG-17 7.92 machine guns, delivered greater destructive firepower. However, above 5,000 meters altitude, the BMW 801 engine lost significant power due to its single-stage supercharger, while the Mustang's Merlin continued delivering robust performance up to 8,000 meters. This was critical because escort combats over Germany routinely occurred between 6,000 and 8,000 meters. At maximum speed, the Mustang exceeded the F-190 by more than 70 km/h. In steep dives, the P-51 accelerated faster and reached higher terminal speeds without experiencing the compressibility issues that affected German designs. Lossig attempted to exploit the FW-190's superior turn capability to gain an advantage, but Lerche simply accelerated, gained altitude using the Mustang's superior energy, and reversed the situation. After multiple engagements, Lossig descended from his FW-190, shaking his head. At high altitude, there is no competition. They dictate when and where to fight. The tests also included evaluations of operational range. A Bf-109 G6 with a 300-liter drop tank had a maximum range of approximately 850 kilometers. An FW-1992A8 with the ventral tank reached about 900 kilometers. The P-51D with 1,020 liters internal fuel plus 2 external tanks of 284 liters each could fly over 2,600 kilometers. This meant Mustangs could escort bombers from England to deep targets in Germany, Poland, and even Czechoslovakia, remaining with formations for the entire journey. German fighters, limited by short range, could only intercept during brief windows before being forced to return to base due to fuel shortage. The German pilots of Circus Rosarius prepared detailed technical reports after weeks of exhaustive evaluations. Their conclusions were unanimous and brutally honest. The P-51 Mustang was superior to the Bf-109G and FW-190A in virtually all aspects relevant to air warfare over Europe in 1944-1945. Its combination of speed, range, high-altitude maneuverability, cockpit visibility, and ease of handling made it the ideal escort fighter. One German pilot wrote in his report, "I have never experienced an aircraft with this balance of performance and handling. It is as if the American designers solved every problem we faced." The Rechlin reports on the captured Mustang were classified as Geheime Kommandosache, command secret, and distributed only to the highest echelons of the Luftwaffe and the Reich Aviation Ministry. Reich Aviation Minister Colonel Lucht personally presented his findings to General der Jagdflieger Adolf Galland, commander of German fighter forces, in January 1945. Galland, himself an ace with 104 confirmed victories, read the documents with an increasingly somber expression. The reality revealed by the reports was devastating. Germany faced a technologically superior air enemy at a time when German industry was being systematically destroyed by Allied strategic bombing. Galland tried to push desperate solutions. One was to accelerate the development of the Focke-Wulf Tar 152, a high-altitude evolution of the FW-190 with a Junkers Jumo 213 engine and extended wings that would allow it to compete with the Mustang above 8,000 meters. However, the Ti-152 faced constant development delays, production problems, and shortages of critical materials. By the time it began entering operational service in January 1945, only about 150 units had been produced, far too few and too late to impact the course of the war. The other hope was the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. With its Junkers Jumo 04 turbojet engines, the Me-262 could reach speeds of up to 870 km/h, far surpassing any Allied or German propeller-driven fighter. In theory, the Me-262 could devastate bomber formations and easily outrun Mustang escorts. However, the Me-262 program suffered constant political interference. Hitler insisted on converting it into a fast bomber rather than an interceptor, delaying its effective deployment. Additionally, the Jumo 004 engines were notoriously unreliable, with service lives of only 10 to 25 hours before requiring complete replacement. Even when Me-262 units entered combat from September 1944, they faced critical problems. The turbojet engines were vulnerable during takeoff and landing when operating at low speeds and could not use their speed advantage. Pilot training to transition from propeller aircraft to jets required time and fuel, resources Germany simply did not have in 1945. Of approximately 100 Me-262s produced, only around 200 saw active combat, achieving claims of roughly 150 victories before the end of the war. German aircraft industry also faced systemic collapse. Allied strategic bombing destroyed key factories such as the Messerschmitt plants in Regensburg and Augsburg, the Focke-Wulf facilities in Bremen, and crucial synthetic fuel refineries producing aviation gasoline. By spring 1945, German aviation fuel production had fallen to less than 10% of 1944 levels. Hundreds of German fighters remained grounded, fully functional, but without fuel to fly. Experienced pilots were idle, while Allied bomber formations, escorted by Mustangs, roamed the German skies with increasing impunity. The tactical recognition of Mustang superiority by Germany's best pilots came with bitter historical irony. In 1940, when the original P-51 design was offered to the British Royal Air Force, it did not impress due to its low-altitude Allison engine. Only when the British suggested installing the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine did the Mustang transform into an exceptional fighter. Germany, which had underestimated American industrial and technological potential for years, now faced the consequences of that strategic arrogance. The fate of the captured P-51 Mustang remains shrouded in historical uncertainty. Records indicate it continued to be used for tests in Rechlin until early 1945. When Soviet forces advanced into Mecklenburg in April 1945, the Rechlin facilities were hastily evacuated. Some documents suggest the Mustang was deliberately destroyed by German personnel to prevent it from falling intact into Soviet hands. Other post-war testimonies mention that captured aircraft were abandoned in underground hangars that were subsequently sealed. To date, no confirmed physical trace of the specific Mustang evaluated at Rechlin has been found, although some historians continue to research Soviet and East German archives. What did survive were the testimonies of the German pilots involved. Colonel Hans-Werner Lercher survived the war and later worked as a civilian test pilot in West Germany. In interviews conducted during the 1960s and 1970s, Lerch spoke openly about his experience flying the captured Mustang. His words reflected professional respect and technical honesty. The P-51 Mustang was simply the best escort fighter of the Second World War. As a test pilot, it was my duty to report objectively on its capabilities. The truth was uncomfortable, but undeniable. We were facing a superior aircraft. Adolf Galland, who received the Rechlin reports on the Mustang, also offered revealing insights in his post-war autobiography, Die Ersten und die Letzten, the first and the last. Galland wrote, "The Rechlin technical reports confirmed what our fighter pilots already knew from bitter experience. The Mustang was formidable. Its range allowed it to be present wherever we needed to operate. Its high-altitude performance dominated our preferred combat zones, and its maneuverability frustrated our established tactics. Recognizing the enemy's superiority is not defeatism, it is professional realism. The impact of the P-51 Mustang on the air war over Europe was decisive and measurable. Before the massive arrival of Mustangs as escort fighters in late 1943, American bomber losses during deep penetration missions were unsustainable. Missions such as the second attack on Schweinfurt in October 1943 resulted in loss rates of 20% per mission. With Mustang protection, capable of escorting bombers for the entire route, bomber losses dropped dramatically to less than 2% per mission by mid-1944. This made possible the continuous strategic bombing campaign that destroyed Germany's industrial and logistical capacity. Mustang pilots claim more air-to-air victories than any other type of American fighter in the European theater. Units equipped with Mustangs, such as the famous 4th Fighter Group and the 357th Fighter Group, accumulated thousands of confirmed victories against German aircraft. The American ace with the most victories in Europe, Major George Preddy, with 26.83 confirmed kills, flew the P-51. The legendary group of African-American pilots, known as the Tuskegee Airmen, also flew Mustangs with great distinction, escorting bombers with remarkably low loss rates. Post-war comparative technical analyses carried out by aeronautical engineers from both the United States and Germany, free from wartime propaganda pressure, confirmed the same conclusions previously reached by Circus Rosarius. The P-51D Mustang represented an almost perfect balance of every attribute required for an escort fighter. Competitive top speed, excellent climb rate, superior high-altitude maneuverability, exceptional operational range, outstanding cockpit visibility, ease of maintenance, and efficient mass production. This last feature was crucial. North American aviation produced more than 15,000 P-51s of all variants, allowing dozens of fighter groups to be equipped simultaneously. The professional honesty of the German pilots of Circus Rosarius in recognizing the Mustang's superiority represents a remarkable aspect of military history. In a regime where propaganda and ideological lies dominated public discourse, these aviators maintained technical integrity in their evaluations. They did not allow national pride or political loyalty to cloud their professional judgment. Their reports, though unable to change the course of the war, provided an accurate assessment that enriched post-war aeronautical knowledge. The professional honesty of the German pilots of Circus Rosarius in recognizing the superiority of the Mustang represents a remarkable aspect of military history. In a regime where propaganda and ideological lies dominated public discourse, these aviators maintained technical integrity in their evaluations. They did not allow national pride or political loyalty to cloud their professional judgment. Their reports, although they could not change the course of the war, provided a precise and valuable assessment that enriched post-war aeronautical knowledge. The legacy of the P-51 Mustang extends far beyond the Second World War. Its design influenced later generations of fighters, establishing principles that remain relevant even today. The importance of operational range, the value of cockpit visibility, the need for sustained performance at high altitude, and the superiority of light, responsive controls. Restored examples of the P-51 Mustang continue to fly in air shows around the world, a living testimony to one of the most important combat aircraft ever built. What do you think about this story? Were you surprised by the honesty of the German pilots? Leave us your comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more historical documentaries about the Second World War. The next video will explore the Messerschmitt Me 262, the revolutionary jet fighter that came too late to change Germany's fate.